getting on the ground now.
You know, I've been doing this for a long time now. Standing in front of people telling stories, making sense of the senseless. And I've learned that the hardest stories to tell are the ones where you're the villain. Not the hero who stumbled. Not the underdog who got back up. The villain. The one who made the choice that ruined everything. And I'm standing here tonight because I need to tell you about the worst decision I ever made. And how it didn't just cost me my freedom. It cost me my brother. His name is Marcus. And right now, as I'm speaking to you, he's out there somewhere, living under a name that isn't his, in a life I helped him steal. And I'm here, waiting for a sentencing hearing that could put me away for 10 years. 10 years. Do you know how long that is when you measure it in moments you'll miss? When you count it in birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays where nothing happens except life, just happening? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. It started 3 years ago. No, that's not true. It started long before that, didn't it? It always does. The big mistakes. The ones that break you open. They're never born in a single moment. They grow slowly, quietly, in all those small moments where you chose comfort over courage. Where you said yes when you meant no. Where you looked away instead of looking closer. Marcus and I grew up in Philadelphia, South Philly. In a row house that always smelled like coffee and old carpet. Our mother worked 2 jobs, one at the hospital during the day, one cleaning offices at night. And our father, we left when I was 7 and Marcus was 5. So our father was just a story we told ourselves to fill the space where he should have been. And Marcus, God, Marcus was everything I wasn't. Loud where I was quiet. Brave where I was careful. He had this laugh that filled rooms. This way of making strangers feel like family. People gravitated to him. I watched it happen over and over. That pull he had, like he was the sun, and everyone else was just orbiting. Me? I was the responsible one. The one who did homework on time, who worked after school at Mr. Chen's grocery store on 9th Street, who saved money in an envelope under my mattress. I got a scholarship to Temple, graduated with a degree in English, and eventually I made something of myself. I published a book, my first book, when I was 28. It was about our neighborhood, about growing up with nothing and trying to make that nothing mean something. It sold okay. Not great, but okay. Enough that I could quit my day job at the advertising firm. Enough that people started recognizing my name. And Marcus? Marcus went the other way. Not because he was bad, understand me, but because life has a way of taking the ones who shine too bright and dimming them down to nothing. He got involved with the wrong people, made the wrong choices. And by the time he was 24, he was facing charges for armed robbery. Armed robbery. My little brother, who used to cry when he accidentally stepped on ants, who once gave his winter coat to a homeless man and walked home shivering. That Marcus was holding people up at gunpoint. He called me the night before his trial. I was in New York at the time, meeting with my editor, staying at a hotel that cost more per night than our mother made in a week. I remember I was tired, jet-lagged, maybe, though I'd only flown an hour. I was standing by the window, looking out at the city, at all those lights, and my phone rang. "Big, brother," he said. Just that. His voice was small. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Marcus." I'm scared. I closed my eyes. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white. I know. I don't want to go to prison. I can't. I can't do that, man. I can't. You should have thought about that before, I said. I said that. Those exact words. Like I was reading from a script, like I was narrating someone else's life and not actually living mine. You made your choices, Marcus. He was quiet for a long time. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Then, yeah, I did. I thought maybe you'd... What? Fix it? Make it go away? I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and bitter. I can't save you from this. I know. His voice broke. Actually broke like something snapping. I just wanted to hear your voice before everything changes. We talked for another 20 minutes. I don't remember what we said. Small things probably. Memories. Inside jokes that didn't land right anymore. And then we hung up, and I went to bed in my expensive hotel room. And I slept fine. I slept just fine. He was sentenced to 8 years. 8 years for armed robbery, for terrorizing a convenience store clerk, for stealing $473. The judge said something about being lucky it wasn't worse. about showing leniency because nobody got hurt. But someone did get hurt. Everyone involved got hurt. That's the thing about violence. It doesn't end when the gun gets put away. I visited him twice in the first year. Twice. I had excuses. I was busy. Book tours, speaking engagements, a second book to write. My career was taking off, you understand? I was finally becoming someone, finally making our mother proud, finally proving that we weren't just another statistic from South Philly. I couldn't let Marcus drag me down into his mess. That's what I told myself, anyway, in the moments late at night when guilt would creep in like smoke under a door. My mother visited him every week, every single week. She'd take 2 buses and a subway to get to that prison, spend an hour with him in that gray room with the plastic chairs and the vending machines that never worked. And then she'd take 2 buses and a subway back home. She never complained, never asked me why I wasn't going more often. But I saw it in her eyes sometimes, that disappointment, that question she wouldn't speak out loud. Then 2 years ago, she got sick. Cancer. Lung cancer, which is darkly funny because she never smoked a day in her life. But she'd spent decades cleaning buildings, breathing in God knows what kind of chemicals, and her body finally said enough. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 4. Marcus was denied compassionate release to see her before she died. Some bureaucratic reason, some paperwork that didn't get filed right, some policy that put procedure over humanity. I was there when she passed. It was a Tuesday morning in March, and the hospital room smelled like antiseptic and something else, something sweet and rotten all at once. I held her hand. It was so light, so delicate, like holding air. And her last words, her last words were about Marcus. "Take care of your brother," she whispered. Her voice was barely there, barely more than breath. "Promise me. Take care of him." "I promise," I said. "He needs you. He's always needed you." And then she was gone, just like that. One moment she was there, present, alive, and the next she was just a body, just skin and bone and stillness. I sat there for a long time, still holding her hand, feeling it grow cold in mine. And I thought about all the times I could have visited Marcus and didn't. All the times I chose my career, my comfort, my carefully constructed life over my family. And I felt something crack open inside me, something that had been holding me together, keeping me separate from a mess and the pain. It just cracked right open. The funeral was small, maybe 30 people, friends from a neighborhood, people from her church, co-workers from the hospital. Marcus watched via video call from prison. I held up my phone so he could see, and I watched his face on that tiny screen as they lowered our mother into the ground. And I watched him break, completely break, shoulders shaking, face buried in his hands, and I couldn't reach him. I couldn't hold him or tell him it would be okay or do any of the things a brother should do. I could only stand there with my phone, broadcasting his grief like it was content, like it was a story to be consumed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bed in our childhood home, surrounded by all the things that made up a life. Photos on the walls, books on shelves, the smell of coffee that still lingered even though no one was there to make it anymore. And I made a decision, a stupid decision, a decision that would change everything. I decided I was going to get Marcus out, not through legal channels. Those had been exhausted. I'd hired lawyers, filed appeals, done everything by the book, and the book said no. The book said Marcus had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. But the book wasn't there when our mother died asking me to take care of him. The book wasn't there in that empty house, in that silence so complete it felt like drowning. So I started planning. I'm a writer, right? I tell stories for a living. I create scenarios, I plot, I think through consequences. Surely I could figure this out. Surely I could use that same skill to write my brother a way out. I spent weeks researching. Prison transfers, security protocols, guard rotations. I contacted people I shouldn't have contacted. People from Marcus's old life who dealt in things I didn't want to know about. And slowly, a plan took shape. It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't movie quality. It was simple, almost stupidly, which is maybe why I thought it might work. Marcus was being transferred to a different facility. It happens sometimes, administrative reshuffling. And during transfers, during those moments of movement between one cage and another, there are vulnerabilities, small windows of opportunity. My contact, I'll call him Ray, though that's not his real name. Ray said he could make it happen. For a price. A significant price. Enough money to make me sick, to make me question everything. But not enough to make me stop. I sold my car, emptied my savings, borrowed money from my publisher against my next advance, citing personal emergencies. I became someone I didn't recognize, someone who lied smoothly, who justified everything with the memory of my mother's last words. Take care of your brother. I repeated it like a mantra, like a prayer, like an incantation that could absolve me of what I was about to do. The day of the transfer, I felt nothing. That's what I remember most clearly. The absolute absence of feeling. I was numb, operating on autopilot, moving through the world like a ghost. I didn't even say goodbye to anyone. Didn't leave notes. Just got in the rental car Ray had arranged and drove to the designated spot outside Harrisburg. And I waited. It happened so fast. That's what no one tells you about life-changing moments. They don't unfold in slow motion like they do in movies. They happen in a blink, in a heartbeat, in the space between one breath and the next. One moment I was sitting in that car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white, watching the road, barely breathing. And the next moment Marcus was there, diving into the passenger seat, breathing hard, blood on his temple, eyes wild with adrenaline and fear, and something that might have been joy. Drive, he said. Just that one word. Drive. And I drove. I drove us out of Pennsylvania, into Ohio, through back roads and forgotten highways where the landscape was all the same endless fields, scattered farmhouses, the kind of American emptiness that feels like freedom until you realize it's just isolation. Marcus didn't say much at first. He kept looking back, kept watching the mirrors, his whole body coiled tight, like spring. There was blood drying on his face. I didn't ask where it came from. I didn't ask if anyone got hurt. I just drove, and the silence between us filled with everything we weren't saying. Around midnight, somewhere outside Toledo, we stopped at a gas station. One of those places that looks abandoned even when it's open. Fluorescent lights buzzing, moths circling. Everything filmed in a layer of dust and grime. I filled the tank while Marcus went inside. Through the window, I watched my coffee and cigarettes, watched him move like a civilian, like someone who had every right to be there. And something about that, about how easily he slipped back into the world, made me feel sick. When he came back, he handed me a cup of coffee. It was terrible coffee, burnt and bitter, but I drank it anyway. We stood there in the parking lot, under those buzzing lights, and finally he said it, "Thank you." I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd aged in prison. His face was harder, thinner. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His hands shook slightly as he lit a cigarette. "Don't thank me," I said. Don't do that. You saved my life, man." No, the word came out harder than I meant it to. I didn't save anything. I made everything worse. For both of us. He took a drag of his cigarette, exhaled slowly. "Mom would be..." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't bring her into this. This isn't what she wanted. She wanted me to take care of you. Not this." We got back in the car. We drove through the night through what was left of Ohio and into Indiana. And as the miles accumulated, reality started settling in. What had I done? What had we done? There was no going back from this. No undoing it. I'd helped a prisoner escape. I'd broken federal law. I'd thrown away everything. My career, my reputation, my freedom. For what? For a promise made to a dying woman? For guilt? For love? Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. Maybe the why doesn't matter when you're hurtling down a dark highway with a fugitive in your passenger seat and the rest of your life crumbling behind you like dust. We ended up in a motel outside Indianapolis, the kind of place that rents by the hour, where nobody asks questions as long as you pay cash. The room smelled like cigarettes and mildew, and the TV was bolted to the dresser, and there was a stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of something, some country that didn't exist. Marcus collapsed on one of the beds. He was asleep in minutes, still in his clothes, still wearing shoes, like he was ready to run at any moment. I sat in the chair by the window and watched the parking lot, watched cars come and go, watched people check in and check out, watched the sun come up slowly, painfully, like even the dawn was reluctant to witness what we'd done. And I thought about calling someone, a lawyer maybe, the police, someone who could fix this, who could make it right. But there was no making this right. There was no version of this story that ended well. My phone buzzed. Text messages flooding in. Missed calls. My publisher. My agent. Friends. Everyone looking for me. Everyone wondering where I was. I turned the phone off. Just powered it down completely. Whatever was happening out there in the world, whatever consequences were mounting, I couldn't face them yet. Not yet. Marcus woke up around noon. He looked at me, looked around the room, and for a second I saw panic flash across his face. Like he'd forgotten where he was, how he'd gotten there. Then memory returned, and with it something that looked almost like grief. What now? He asked. I don't know. You don't know? He sat up, ran his hands through his hair. Man, you got to have a plan. You had a plan for getting me out. You got to have a plan for what comes next. The plan was getting you out. That was as far as I thought. He laughed. Actually laughed, this bitter, broken sound. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, we're so screwed. I know. They're going to find us. You know that, right? They're going to hunt us down like dogs. And when they catch us, and they will catch us, it's going to be so much worse than if I just done my time. I know. Then why? His voice cracked. Why'd you do it? Why'd you throw your whole life away for me? I'm not worth it, man. I'm not worth any of this. I looked at him. My little brother. The boy who used to follow me everywhere. Who used to believe I could fix anything. Who used to look at me like I was some kind of hero. And I told him the truth. Because I couldn't save Mom. And I couldn't save you the right way. So I saved you the only way I knew how. Even if it was the wrong way. We stayed in that motel for 3 days. 3 days of barely eating, barely sleeping, barely speaking. We watched the news on that bolted-down TV. Watched as the story broke nationally. Author helps brother escape prison. There was my face on the screen, an old photo from a book jacket, and there was Marcus's face, his mugshot, and there were reporters talking about us like we were characters in a story, like we weren't real people with real consequences bearing down on us. Ray called once, told us he'd arranged new identities for Marcus. Social security card, driver's license, birth certificate, all fake, all untraceable, all expensive. He didn't offer me the same. You're too visible, he said. Too many people know your face. The best thing you can do is turn yourself in. Get ahead of this before it gets worse. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not while Marcus still needed me. On the 4th day, we left the motel. Ray had arranged a safe house in Missouri, some rural property owned by someone who owed him favors. We drove through Illinois, through small towns with names I've already forgotten, through landscapes that all blurred together into one long stretch of sameness. And Marcus started changing, started becoming someone else. He practiced his new name, David Chun of all things, practiced his new backstory, his new life. He'd always been good at performing, at becoming whoever people needed him to be. I watched him shed Marcus like a skin, watch my brother disappear beneath this construct, this fiction we'd created. The safe house was a farmhouse isolated, surrounded by cornfields that stretched to the horizon. The nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. It was perfect for hiding, perfect for disappearing. We spent 2 weeks there. Ray would stop by every few days with supplies, with news, with warnings. The FBI was involved now. There was a manhunt. My apartment in Philadelphia had been searched. My bank accounts frozen. My publisher had dropped me. My agent had resigned. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, gone. Just gone. Like it had never existed at all. And Marcus? Marcus was adapting. He started running every morning, started working out in the barn, started talking about the future like he had one. He talked about going west, about getting work under the table, about starting over somewhere nobody knew him. And I listened and nodded and said nothing about how none of that was realistic, how he was a fugitive and would always be a fugitive, how one mistake, one slip, one person recognizing him would end everything. I couldn't stay with him. We both knew that. Every day I was with him increased the risk of him getting caught. It was a liability, a connection to his past, a thread that investigators could pull to unravel everything. So we made a plan, a real plan this time. He would stay at the safe house for another month, let things cool down, and then Ray would move him west. California maybe, or Washington. Somewhere with big cities where a person could disappear into the crowd. And me? I would turn myself in. The night before I left, we sat on the porch and drank cheap beer and watched the sun set over those cornfields. The sky was on fire, oranges and reds and purples that looked painted, that looked unreal. And Marcus, he turned to me and said, "I'm sorry." For what? For all of it. For being the one who needed saving. For letting you throw your life away for mine. For never being the brother you deserved. I felt something lodge in my throat, something hot and sharp. You were always the brother I deserved. I was the one who failed. I was the one who wasn't there when you needed me. I was the one who chose everything else over you. You had a life. You had a career. I had excuses, I said. That's all they were. Excuses for why I couldn't visit more often. Couldn't call more often, couldn't be there. And Mom saw through them. She always saw through them. That's why her last words were about you. She knew. She knew I'd been failing you. And she was giving me one last chance to make it right. This isn't right, Marcus said quietly. This isn't making anything right. This is just trading one prison for another. Maybe. But at least you're out. At least you're free. Am I, though? He gestured at the endless fields, the isolation. Is this freedom? Looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life? Never using my real name? Never contacting anyone from before? I'm not free. I'm just somewhere else. We didn't talk much after that. We finished our beers in silence and eventually went inside, and I lay in that small bedroom on the second floor and listened to the house settle. To the distant sound of Marcus moving around downstairs, to the vast emptiness of the countryside pressing in from all sides. I turned myself in on a Wednesday morning in late September. I drove myself to the FBI field office in St. Louis, walked up to the front desk, and said my name. The agent behind the desk, young guy, couldn't have been more than 25. His eyes went wide. Within minutes, I was surrounded, escorted to an interrogation room. Read my rights. The room was exactly like you'd imagine. Gray walls, metal table, one-way mirror, fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out, unreal. They asked me where Marcus was. They asked me again and again and again in different ways from different angles, good cop and bad cop and everything in between. I said nothing, invoked my right to an attorney, sat there in silence while they pressured and prodded and tried to break me down. But here's the thing about having nothing left to lose. You can't be threatened. You can't be bargained with. I'd already lost everything that mattered. What could they take that wasn't already gone? I was charged with aiding and abetting an escape, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. The list went on. My bail was set astronomically high, $500,000. No one posted it. I sat in county jail for 4 months waiting for trial. And in that time I learned what Marcus had lived for 2 years. The noise, the smell, the absolute absence of privacy, of softness, of anything gentle or kind. I learned how time moves differently behind bars, how minutes stretch into hours and days blur together until you lose track of what month it is, what season, whether it matters at all. My court-appointed attorney. Her name was Sarah Levine, and she looked tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. She told me I was looking at 10 to 15 years. Could be more if they wanted to make an example of me. I was a public figure. I'd made the FBI look foolish. They wanted blood. Your best option is to tell them where your brother is, Sarah said. We were sitting in a consultation room, her with her folders and legal pads, me in my orange jumpsuit. Cooperate, show remorse. Maybe we can get it down to 5 years. No. No? That's it? Just no? I'm not telling them where Marcus is. She sighed, rubbed her temples. Then you need to understand what you're facing. A decade of your life. Possibly more. You'll be in your mid-40s when you get out. Your career will be over. You'll be a convicted felon. Do you understand that? I understand. Do you? Do you really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're throwing your life away for a fantasy. Your brother is probably going to get caught anyway. Fugitives always do. And when he does, your sacrifice will mean nothing. It means something to me, I said. The trial was quick. 3 weeks. The prosecution laid out their case methodically, thoroughly. They had evidence, paper trails, witness statements, security footage, phone records. They painted a picture of premeditation, of careful planning, of a man who knowingly and deliberately broke the law. My defense was, there wasn't much of a defense. We couldn't deny what I'd done. We could only argue about why. Sarah tried. She talked about my mother's death, about my emotional state, about diminished capacity due to grief. She called witnesses who testified to my character. My editor, my college professor, neighbors from Philadelphia who remembered me as a good kid, a hard worker. But none of it mattered. The jury took less than 4 hours to deliberate. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was 3 months later. Federal cases moved slowly, grinding forward with bureaucratic inevitability. I spent those months in county jail, reading, writing, thinking. I started working on something new, not a book exactly, but notes, memories, thoughts about choice and consequence and the distance between who we want to be and who we actually are. My attorney said people had written letters on my behalf. Readers who'd been moved by my books, colleagues from the writing community, even some advocates for prison reform who saw my case as emblematic of larger systemic issues. I don't know if the judge read them. I don't know if they made any difference. The day of sentencing, I was brought into the courtroom in shackles. The judge was a woman in her 60s, stern-faced, gray hair pulled back tight. She presided over the trial, had heard all the evidence, had seen me sit silent through most of it. She asked if I had anything to say before she handed down my sentence. I stood. The shackles rattled. Everyone was watching. Journalists, courtroom observers. The few people who'd bothered to show up for a case that had already stopped being news. Your Honor, I said, and my voice sounded strange foreign. I hadn't used it much in months. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect leniency. I know what I did was wrong. I broke the law, consciously and deliberately, and I'm prepared to accept the consequences of that choice. I paused, swallowed, kept going, but I want to say something about why, not as an excuse, but as an explanation. My mother's last words to me were, "Take care of your brother." And I'd spent years not doing that. Years prioritizing my career, my comfort, my carefully constructed life over my family. I'd become someone who talked about moral complexity in my books, but couldn't navigate it in my actual life. So when she died, when she gave me that one last instruction, I took it literally. I took it desperately. I took it as a chance for redemption, even though the path I chose led to damnation. Someone in the gallery coughed. The judge's expression didn't change. I know my brother was being punished justly. I know he needed to serve his time, face his consequences. I know that by helping him escape, I didn't actually save him. I just delayed the inevitable and made everything worse. For him, for me, for everyone involved. I know all of that now. But in that moment, in that desperate, grief-stricken moment, all I could think was that I'd failed my mother by not taking care of Marcus when it mattered. And I wasn't going to fail her again. I looked at the judge. Her face was unreadable. So I'm not asking for mercy, Your Honor. I'm just asking that you understand. This wasn't about contempt for the law or disrespect for the justice system. This was about love. Broken, misguided, destructive love, but love nonetheless. And if I had to choose again, knowing everything I know now, knowing where I'd end up, I'm not sure I'd choose differently. Because at least I tried. At least I didn't fail her a second time. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge took off her glasses, cleaned them slowly, put them back on. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "that's my name, David Morrison. Though I haven't mentioned it until now, what you did was not just illegal. It was a betrayal of the social contract we all agree to when we live in a civilized society. Laws exist to protect us from chaos, from the arbitrary exercise of power, from the rule of might over right. When you helped your brother escape lawful custody, you declared yourself above those laws. You decided that your love, your grief, your personal sense of justice mattered more than the collective good." She shuffled some papers, looked up at me. "However, I've read the letters written on your behalf. I've considered your lack of prior criminal history. I've taken into account the circumstances of your mother's death and your evident emotional distress. I've also noted that you turned yourself involuntarily, that you could have fled but chose not to, that you've shown remorse, if not for helping your brother, then at least for the broader consequences of your actions." A pause, long enough that I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after serving 85% of your sentence." You will also be ordered to pay restitution for the costs incurred in the manhunt for your brother. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Just like that. 10 years. The number I'd been expecting. But hearing it made real, made official, it hit different. It hit like a physical thing. Like weight. Like gravity increasing until you could barely stand under it. They took me back to county that day. A week later, I was transferred to FCI Cumberland in Maryland. Federal prison. The real thing. And I started serving my time. That was 18 months ago. I've been here for 18 months now, and I still have 8.5 years to go. Maybe less with good behavior, with parole, with time off, for whatever reasons they give time off. But probably not much less. Marcus is still out there. I haven't heard from him. Can't hear from him. Shouldn't hear from him. For his sake, we need to stay separated, stay disconnected. But sometimes I wonder if he thinks about me. If he feels guilty for being free while I'm locked up. If he's managed to build anything resembling a life under his new identity. If he's happy. I hope he is. I hope he's figured out how to live with what we did, how to carry that weight without letting it crush him. I hope he's found some kind of peace, some kind of purpose. Because if he hasn't, if he's just surviving, just existing, just waiting for the inevitable moment when his past catches up with him, then what was all of this for? I've had a lot of time to think. That's what prison gives you, time. Endless, crushing, inescapable time. And I've thought about my mother, about whether I kept my promise to her. I took care of Marcus, but I did it in the worst possible way. I saved him from prison by putting myself in one. I gave him freedom by taking mine away. Is that what she meant? Is that what she wanted? I don't think so. I think she wanted me to be there for him in the small ways, the consistent ways, the ways that actually matter. Phone calls, visits, support. Not grand gestures that destroy everything. But I'd already failed at the small ways, and the grand gesture was all I had left. I write every day now, but not for publication. I doubt anyone would want to publish anything I write after this. But for myself, trying to make sense of it all, trying to understand how a person goes from being a successful author to being an inmate, how love can lead to destruction, how the best intentions can produce the worst outcomes. I write about my childhood, about Marcus, about my mother, about the choices we make and the stories we tell ourselves to justify them. Sometimes other inmates ask what I'm in for. When I tell them, reactions vary. Some think I'm stupid. Some think I'm noble. Some think I'm both. A guy named Tommy, he's doing 15 for drug trafficking. He told me once, "Man, family's everything. You did what you had to do." But did I? Did I really have to do it? Or did I just choose to because it felt like action, like redemption, like proof that I loved my brother enough to sacrifice everything? I don't know. Even now, after all this time, after all this thinking, I don't know. What I do know is this. I'm here. The Marcus is out there. Our mother is dead. Our choices led us to these places, and we can't undo them. We can only live with them, carry them. Try to find some meaning in the mess we've made. The other day, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. A sunset over mountains somewhere out west. On the back, in handwriting, I recognized, even after all these years, 2 words. Thank you. I held that photograph for a long time. Looked at those mountains, that sunset, tried to imagine Marcus somewhere beyond them, living as David Chin, building something new. And I don't know what I felt. Not regret, exactly. Not satisfaction either. Maybe just acknowledgement. This is what love cost. This is what family demanded. This is what I chose. I keep that photograph under my pillow now. Nobody knows I have it. If they found it, if they traced it somehow, if they used it to find Marcus, I can't let that happen. But I can't throw it away either. It's proof. Proof that he's alive, that he's okay. That maybe, just maybe, what I did accomplished something. 8.5 years ago. That's 102 months. 3,103 days. Give or take. I count them sometimes when the weight gets too heavy. Then I stop counting. Because numbers don't actually mean anything when you're living them one moment at a time. I've become someone different in here. Quieter, harder, more careful with my words. I've learned prison rhythms, when to talk, when to stay silent, how to be invisible when necessary. I've learned that time doesn't heal anything. It just gives you practice carrying wounds. I've learned that people are adaptable, terrifyingly so, that you can get used to almost anything if you have no other choice. And I've learned that actions have consequences, real ones, lasting ones. Ones that don't go away because you're sorry or because you meant well. I destroyed my life. That's just a fact. And I'd be lying if I said I was at peace with it. I'm not. I don't know if I ever will be. But I'm learning to live with the reality of what I did, who I became, and what I lost. My mother asked me to take care of my brother. I did. Just not the way anyone should. Not the way she meant. But in some broken, irreversible way, I did. There are days when I think I made the right choice. Days when I remember Marcus's voice on the phone that night before his trial. That smallness, that fear. And I think, how could I have done anything else? How could I have let him drown when I had the ability to pull him out? Those are the days when this cell feels bearable, when these walls feel like a price worth paying. Then there are the other days, the days when I think about what I could have done instead. I could have been there for him during his sentence, could have visited every week like our mother did, could have written him letters, sent him books, helped him plan for life after release, could have been the support system he needed to get through his time and come out the other side ready to rebuild. That would have been taking care of him. That would have been what she meant. But I didn't have the patience for that. Didn't have the humility. I wanted the grand gesture, the dramatic rescue, the story where I was the hero who saved the day. Even now, even admitting all this, part of me wonders if I did it for him at all, or if I did it for me, to assuage my guilt, to prove something, to write myself into a narrative where I mattered, where I was the protagonist making the hard choice instead of the supporting character who'd failed his family for years. I talked to my therapist about this. Yeah, they have therapists in federal prison. Mine is a woman named Dr. Patricia Okonkwo. Comes in twice a week. Sees inmates who are trying to work through their shit instead of just surviving it. She's good, patient. Doesn't let me hide behind my writer's language, my careful constructions. You keep talking about what you did for Marcus, she said to me a few months ago. But I want you to think about what you did to yourself. Not as punishment, as revelation. What did you learn about David Morrison through this choice? I didn't answer right away. We were in one of the counseling rooms, small space with 2 chairs and a table, a clock on the wall that always ran 5 minutes slow. Outside the door, I could hear the prison voices, footsteps, the constant ambient noise that never stops. I learned I'm impulsive, I finally said. I learned I'm selfish. I learned that when I'm in pain, I make everyone around me suffer too. That's self-flagellation, Dr. Okonkwo said. I'm not asking you to beat yourself up. I'm asking you what you discovered. I don't understand the difference. Beating yourself up is about punishment. Discovery is about understanding. So tell me what you understand now that you didn't before. I thought about it, really thought about it. I understand that I spent my whole life trying to be good, the good son, the responsible one, the one who made it out, who made something of himself. And I thought that goodness was about achievement, about success, about being the person everyone could point to and say he made it. But when Mom died, when I couldn't save her, when I couldn't do anything except watch her fade away, all that goodness felt empty, felt like a lie I'd been telling myself. So you decided to do something that felt real? Yeah, something that cost me something, something that proved I was willing to sacrifice for the people I loved, even if it was destructive, even if it was wrong. At least it was real. Dr. Okonkwo nodded slowly. And now, does it still feel real? It feels like a mistake, I said. It feels like I confused intensity with authenticity. Like I thought if something hurt enough, cost enough, damaged enough, it must be true. But pain isn't proof of anything except pain. That conversation stayed with me. I think about it a lot, especially at night when a prison goes as quiet as it ever gets and I'm alone with my thoughts and that photograph under my pillow. I've started corresponding with someone on the outside. Her name is Miriam. She's a professor at Villanova, teaches ethics and philosophy, and she read my first book years ago. She wrote to me about 6 months into my sentence, said she'd been following my case, and that she wanted to understand the philosophical dimensions of what I'd done. Not to judge, just to understand. At first, I didn't write back. What was there to say? But she kept writing, once a month, like clockwork. Short letters, always thoughtful, always asking questions I didn't want to answer. Eventually, I responded, And now we write back and forth regularly. She's become not a friend exactly, but something. A witness maybe. Someone who knows the whole story and hasn't decided I'm either a hero or a monster. Just a person who made a catastrophic choice. In her last letter, she wrote something that's been circling in my head. Perhaps the question isn't whether you made the right choice, but whether you're making the right choices now in this moment, with what you have left. What do I have left? Not much. Not my career. Not my freedom. Not my reputation. But I have time. All this terrible, endless time. And I have the ability to choose what I do with it. I can waste it in bitterness and regret, or I can use it to become someone different. Not better necessarily, because I don't know if I believe in redemption arcs anymore, but different. More honest maybe. More aware of my own capacity for self-deception. I've been helping other inmates with their legal appeals. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read, I can write, I can help them organize their thoughts and present their cases more clearly. There's a guy named Deshaun, 23 years old, and for a crime he probably did commit, but got railroaded by an overworked public defender who barely looked at his case. I've been helping him prepare an appeal, going through transcripts, finding procedural errors. It's tedious work. Probably won't amount to anything, but it's something. It's a way of taking care of someone that doesn't involve destroying my own life in the process. That's what I'm learning, I guess. That taking care of people doesn't require grand gestures. It requires showing up, consistently, without expectation of reward or recognition. Just being there. I wish I'd learned that earlier. I wish I'd learned it when Marcus was first arrested, when he was going through his trial, when he was serving his time. I wish I'd learned it when my mother was alive, when I could have visited more, called more, been present more. But I didn't. I was too busy building my career, too busy being successful, too busy performing the role of the son who made it out. And now here I am, in prison, 8.5 years to go. And my brother's out there somewhere, living under a false name, looking over his shoulder, carrying the weight of knowing that his freedom cost me mine. I wonder if that's fair to him. I made the choice. He didn't ask me to. He would have served his time and gotten out eventually. Would have been in his early 30s, still young enough to start over legitimately. Now he's a fugitive forever. Can never come home. Can never use his real name. Can never contact anyone from his past. I didn't save him. I just changed the terms of his imprisonment. Maybe we're both in prison now. His is just bigger, has better scenery. There was a hearing last month about Marcus's case. The FBI formally closed the active manhunt. After 3 years, they've moved him to the cold case files. Doesn't mean they've stopped looking. It just means they're not dedicating active resources to finding him anymore. My lawyer told me this during one of her visits, and I didn't know how to feel. Relief, maybe? That he has a better chance of staying hidden? Or sadness? Because it means he's really gone, really disappeared, really become someone else? Both. Neither. All of it at once. Sarah, my lawyer. She still visits occasionally, even though there's no legal reason for her to. I think she's curious about me, about how someone makes the choices I made. Or maybe she just feels sorry for me. Either way, I appreciate the visits. She brings news from the outside, tells me what's happening in the world, helps me feel less disconnected. Your second book is selling again, she told me last visit. Use copies on eBay, Amazon. People are interested in your work because of the case. That's grotesque, I said. Maybe. But it's also human nature. We're drawn to tragedy, to spectacular failures. You lived a story people find compelling. I'm not a story. I'm a person serving a sentence. You're both, she said, whether you like it or not. She's right. I hate that she's right. I've become a cautionary tale, a think piece topic, a true crime curiosity. The author who threw it all away. When love becomes crime. The cost of brotherhood. I've seen the headlines, read some of the articles during library time. Most of them get it wrong. Simplify it. Make it cleaner than it was. But some of them understand something true. That people are complicated. That love is messy. That sometimes we hurt the people we're trying to save. I got another letter last week. This one had a return address. Philadelphia. I didn't recognize the name. Inside was a short note from someone who'd grown up in our neighborhood, who remembered Marcus and me as kids. She wrote that she'd been following my case, that she understood why I did what I did, that family loyalty means something in neighborhoods like ours. She said she was praying for me, said she hoped I found peace. I don't know if I'll find peace. Peace seems like a luxury, something for people who've resolved their conflicts and can look back with clarity. I'm still in the middle of it, still living the consequences, still trying to figure out what it all means. But I'll tell you what I have found: acceptance. Not of what I did. I'll probably always question that choice, but of where I am. This is my life now. This cell, this routine, these people, this time. I can rage against it, or I can accept it and figure out how to live within it with some degree of dignity. Most days, I choose acceptance. Some days I fail. Some days the walls close in and the air feels too thick and I can't breathe, and all I can think about is everything I've lost and everything I'll never get back. Those days are hard. Those days I just survive minute by minute until the feeling passes. But more often now, I have days where I wake up and the weight is bearable. Days where I help Deshaun with his appeal, or I write in my journal, or I have a conversation with Dr. Okonkwo that actually moves something inside me. Days where I remember that I'm still alive, still here, still capable of growth, even in this place that's designed to contain and punish. 8.5 years. It's not forever. It just feels like it. When I get out, I'll be 46 years old, middle-aged, gray hair, probably, lines on my face that weren't there before, a felony record that will follow me everywhere, no career to return to, no savings, no safety net, but I'll be free. I'll be able to walk down a street without permission, eat when I'm hungry, sleep without fluorescent lights and random bed checks, see the sky whenever I want. And maybe I'll see Marcus again. Not right away, not for a long time. It wouldn't be safe. But someday, when enough years have passed, when the statute of limitations has run out on whatever charges he might still face, when we're both old enough that the past feels like another lifetime, maybe we'll sit down somewhere and talk about what we did, what it cost, whether it was worth it. I don't know what I'll say to him. I don't know if I'll be angry or relieved or just tired. I don't know if he'll thank me again or apologize or tell me I ruined both our lives for nothing. But I know I want to see him, just to know he's okay, just to know he built something with the freedom I bought him, just to know that some part of this catastrophe led to something good, even if most of it led to loss. That's what I hold onto in here, that hope, that possibility, that somewhere out there, my little brother is alive and safe and maybe even happy, that our mother's last words, "Take care of your brother," weren't completely in vain, even if the way I honored them was all wrong. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if it justifies what I did or makes the sacrifice worthwhile. But it's what I have. It's what keeps me going when nothing else does. So here I am, David Morrison, inmate number 47893-083, formerly an author, formerly free, currently just a man in a cell, trying to make sense of love and loss and all the ways we fail the people we care about most. 8.5 years to go. I'll survive them, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one small act of taking care of someone, including myself, at a time. And maybe, just maybe, when I finally walk out of here, I'll have learned what it actually means to be a brother. Not the dramatic version, not the grand gesture version, just the everyday show up, be present version. The version my mother actually meant, the version I should have been all along.